Forget it. Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order. My name is Candy Merrow Carlson, Chair of the committee, and to my right, we have Councilor Jenny Priscillo, and we also have with us this evening the Chief Development Officer, Peter Dunn. We also have Michelle Smith, who is the Assistant Chief of Planning. And we have Claire Robbins, who will be clerking the meeting tonight. I will ask Ms. Robbins to please read item 1A.
Through the chair, before doing so, would you like me to take a roll call for attendance?
That'd be great.
Councilor Pasillo? Here. Councilor Toomey? And Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Here.
Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in order to ensure active public engagement, the City of Worcester currently allows for both in-person and remote participation at all City Council and Standing Committee meetings. To partake in the meeting, you may attend the meeting in person here in the Esther Howland Chamber at City Hall, or follow the link on the city's website to join via Zoom or dial the direct line. If you join a Zoom meeting by dialing in with a phone number, you may raise your hand by dialing *9 or using the raise hand function on Zoom. The phone number for the Economic Development Committee Zoom is 1-646-828-7666 with access code 160-382-3487.
Thank you. So we will move on to 2A, approval of the minutes. Order that the City Council Standing Committee of Economic Development hereby approves the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting on November 24th, 2025.
Councilor Pasillo?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey? And Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Okay, we are going to go out of order here tonight. We are going to move on to item 4A, order of Mayor Joseph Petty and Councilor Candy Merrow Carlson, request Standing Committee on Economic Development invite representatives from the Massachusetts Port Authority, Massport, to present to the committee an overview of their investments and management process at the Worcester Regional Airport to date. Said presentation should also include how the Worcester Regional Airport will be included in the recently announced Massport strategic planning effort. So with that, the folks from Massport, I believe, are here. If you'd like to come up to the table here, it would make life easier for all of us. Actually, we could use that mic right there, Peter. And we just, let's move this chair over there.
Will there be anything on the screen? Okay.
Michelle, here's a chair right
Will
here.
be clicking. Do I have a clicker or? I'll just mention on the next slide.
Okay, and if you could please introduce yourselves, that would be terrific for the general public.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilor Pacillo. Andy Davis, Airport Director of Worcester Regional Airport. I also have with me Amir Skokic, who is the Massport's Chief Strategy Officer. So we do have a number of slides. I will try to go as quickly as possible. I know your time is valued, so I'll start off by offering basically an update on Worcester Regional Airport, particularly when we took ownership back in 2010. On slide 3, I kind of skipped ahead. Here we go. So as I mentioned, Massport took ownership of Worcester Regional Airport in 2010 from the City of Worcester, and we made significant strides in promoting commercial and general aviation. 2013, we were able to persuade JetBlue to start operating with service to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale, which was almost immediately successful. And we also upgraded our fixed-based operator. Swissport was the original operator, and they really didn't have their heart set on a good, up-to-date, modern facility. Retrix Aviation invested over $7 million in a private hangar and facility and really made it a very beautiful facility for visiting dignitaries in general aviation. One of the most significant investments, and I'll get into the investments in just a second, was in 2017 and 18, where we met with Congressman McGovern and then the Secretary of Transportation and offered to install a $30 million Category 3 landing system, which basically means if anybody's ever flown out of Worcester by being 1,000 feet above sea level, we tend not to be in the fog, we tend to be in the clouds. And reliability with airlines having to divert or cancel was really persuading passengers to avoid flying out of Worcester. This new system basically allows an airplane to land in pea soup fog, and it's proven very reliable. In the year before it was installed, JetBlue had as many as 18 cancellations and diversions related to weather. The year after, there were 2 cancellations. I'm sorry, 2 diversions, neither of which had to do with the weather in Worcester. So it basically gave the airlines 100% reliability when it comes to weather. Obviously, we got hit by the COVID pandemic, and regrettably, all the airlines suspended operations for several months, but they all made a commitment to come back. They didn't pull their computers, they didn't take their signs down, they did make a commitment to come back, and they all came back, and they came back strong. They came back with new markets, larger airplanes, and we started breaking records with passenger counts since then. I mentioned the infrastructure improvements we made. Over the past 15 years, we've invested over $250 million in the airport. And the highlights to that are significant improvements to the already modern airport, but to keep it more modern, we expanded the terminal security checkpoint to make it more convenient for passengers to go through the screening without long lines. We've increased parking temporarily for our new Fort Myers service that JetBlue started operating. And we've done significant improvements and upgrades and replacements, but mostly with the runways and the safety areas. And we've also made significant investments in safety, that being the firefighting equipment. We exceed the FAA requirements for fire trucks. And with snow removal, we have multifunctional equipment up there that can clear the runway in less than 13 minutes down to bare pavement. On the next slide, this basically gives you the 30,000-foot level of where we're situated in central Massachusetts. You all know where Worcester Regional Airport is, but here's the distance from the neighboring airports. So we do make up the regional side of the central Massachusetts, but what's important is the green shaded areas where within 20 miles of Worcester Regional Airport, there are 870,000 people that are capable of coming to Worcester Airport, which is closer than the surrounding airports. But when you expand that radius to 40 miles, we have 4.2 million people that have the ability to use Worcester Regional Airport instead of the surrounding airports. On the next slide, this basically shows our current schedule. New York LaGuardia is served by Delta Airlines. Philadelphia is served by American Airlines. Each have one daily flight to both those markets. And JetBlue covers the Florida markets with seasonal service to Fort Myers, which just started in October, right through the end of April. So spring training fans can get their fix of the Red Sox down in Fort Myers, and then year-round service to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale. On the next slide, I mentioned our general aviation partners, Retrix Aviation, that built that $7.5 million facility. That did change hands a few times, and it's currently operated by Atlantic Aviation, which has 100 operations throughout the country and internationally. But what's good is they've got a great reputation. They're extremely professional, and since they took over in April 2023, general aviation and corporate activity has actually increased 43%. So how do we get word out? We do a lot of things from a marketing standpoint. We are the official airport for the Worcester Red Sox, so we cover that sponsorship during the summer months. And in the winter months, we just signed paperwork to become the Worcester Railers Hockey Club official airport. That's over the multiple years, and if anybody goes next week on December 20th, we're sponsoring the Teddy Toss, so show up and bring your teddy bears with you. We cover print ads. Yes, people still read newspapers, so we do advertise on various newspapers, not just the Telegram, but the Community Advocate and the smaller regional neighborhood-type newspapers. Social media is the way to go. We do a lot of social media on all platforms. We also do a number of exhibits and live performances up at the airport. And we are a sponsor with the Chamber of Commerce, and we are the sponsor for the Voice of Business, which if you listen to WCRN in the morning, you'll hear our sponsorship for that. One particular note is our sponsorship for the Wings for Autism, which we hold every year. Approximately 300 family members will come to Worcester Regional Airport with a member of the family that's on the spectrum that really has to get immersed in what it's like to fly out of an airport before they actually get on an airplane. And it's made wonderful success stories about being able to practice checking in, going through security, boarding an airplane. The airlines offer up airplanes for the family members to experience what it's like. I just had a family drive up from New Jersey to experience that last one, and they said they're actually going to start flying out of Worcester. It's worth the 5-hour drive instead of going out of Newark. On the next slide, what we do for the community, we give to charitable organizations on the left. We host the City of Worcester's Summer Jobs Program, specifically the Park Stewards, where we pick up the tab on the salary of approximately 20 students each year. And we also sponsor the festivals and the parades that go on in the city. One of the highlights on the next slide is what we just recently partnered with the Worcester Public Schools, the middle schools, the Chamber of Commerce, and all the stakeholders at the airport. We are hosting up to 20, as many as 30 middle schoolers to get monthly experiences at the airport. We just had one last night, very similar to the picture you see, where they got briefed by corporate aviation pilots and flight attendants and the mechanics, and they spent 2 hours in the Atlantic Aviation hangar. And we do several other things, firefighting. TSA gives a briefing. They get a total immersion for potential careers with aviation.
Grab a chair. Kate, grab a chair. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Counselor, I'd be happy to start over.
Sorry, Mike.
No, not at all. At this point, since we're shifting over to the strategic planning mode, our subject matter expert, Amir, will take over from here.
Okay, great. So, and prior to doing so, just want to recognize Counselor Kate Toomey has just joined us. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for having us, and let me know if you need me to speed up or slow down, depending on your time requirements. So on the page 11, like Andy said, we're transitioning over to talking about the Massport-wide strategic planning effort. The couple of things I'd draw your kind of attention to on this page is we had an initial kind of Massport-wide discussion about what should our mission and vision be for this next 10 years. So the way we're defining these as mission is kind of the timeless, kind of everlasting point of the authority. So connecting Massachusetts to the world and moving the region forward is kind of our tagline that encompasses both our mission of connection, right, with the airports and the seaport and the cruise ports and whatnot, as well as, you know, forward movement. What we're trying to capture there is both focus on innovation in the next period, as well as economic development being our, you know, our linchpin of why we exist. I wanted to just talk briefly about the vision aspect on here as well, which is we lined out kind of as an organization being a world-class leader in customer service and innovation in travel, shipping, and economic development, supporting our diverse communities. It's a bit of a long sentence, but the relevant aspect that you'll see again and again is that we're, given we're taking a 10-year forward-looking kind of plan, it's important to look at innovation and how our underlying markets are changing. And we just want to reemphasize that we have a big customer service focus in this strategic plan, which you'll see over and over again. So if we can advance the page. Out of that kind of mission setting exercise, we also came up with Massport-wide strategic objectives. Let me know if I'm not doing the microphone right. And so these are kind of the 8 Massport-wide strategic objectives hitting on safety, customer service, becoming a great partner with our communities, as well as being an employer of the region, employer of choice, being kind of our biggest objectives in this plan. If we just advance forward one page, this is kind of the last setup, I'll say, which is we also had ingoing principles for this plan. You know, it's supposed to be a long-ranging, ambitious plan, right? We want it to be collaborative, so we're very happy to be with you all here and share our preliminary views and doing that with all our different stakeholders. Maybe to start to get into the meat of it on page 14. So one of the first things we did across all of our assets on Massport, which is what you see here depicted. You see our 3 airports, our 2 kind of seaports, and our real estate assets, as well as cross-cutting the things that support them from talent, community, and digital and AI. What we started with was setting what we thought were balanced yet ambitious targets for each of our assets. So maybe I'll just talk about 2 of them that are relevant. So for example, for Logan, our goal is to be a top 5 airport customer experience. Different ways of measuring that. One of them would be the J.D. Power ranking, among others, as well as elevating every journey. So speaking to ensuring that we're putting the customer first. With Worcester, we set a target of saying half a million people flying Central Massachusetts. So that was our target from today's base. I think you said around
Just to put that into
230,000.
perspective, last couple of years, we've been hovering around 230,000 passengers a year. The maximum was in 1998, I believe, where 354,000 passengers used Worcester Regional Airport.
Right. And so that was one of those goals. You know, 500,000 during the duration of this plan would represent a growth rate at Worcester that's multiple times higher than that at Logan, which is obviously a growing airport. So it's, you know, just reinforcing our commitment to growing the regional, our regional presence in Worcester. If we go forward, I wanted to take us through a couple of pages. So one of the things that we did as part of this process is we held a workshop with the Worcester community. We convened business leaders, elected officials, and we wanted to show, we brought forward experts from the aviation industry and talked about kind of all the challenges that Worcester faces and some of the opportunities that could come out of it. So as you see kind of here, we had a kind of a half day, a lot of kind of breakout sessions and ideas, and we'll be coming back to that same group in the coming months with, you know, having explored some of the ideas that came out of that workshop. So we can make sure that we action on them as well. I wanted to show some of the things that were, you know, some of the biggest learnings that came out of that workshop, kind of for this group. I think it's relevant and important. We took that group through, or our industry experts took us through kind of an overview of the airline industry, kind of where it sits today. This page has a nice overview kind of the how the state of the airline industry from a profitability standpoint relative to other areas. And the main thing being that even relative to the average in the USA and the higher margin kind of industries, it's very much, it's an industry that's taken a bit of a beating in the last couple of years. And so it's not in a, we have to think about that as we think about how we grow to entice these airlines. So on page 17 rather, we go into a little bit more of in the industry, the tailwinds and the headwinds. I won't go into these in detail, but I will say that the tailwinds, the things that are going good for the industry, sort of benefit the Deltas of the world, the big airlines, right? Like they're the ones who are able to take advantage of the ancillary revenue, right? Charging for baggage, charging for different kinds of fees, different cabins. They're also able to pair their travel with a credit card and get that additional kind of stickiness. Whereas some of the headwinds are, unfortunately, more disproportionately affect regional airports, right? So regional airports and regional carriers. When you think about the labor cost inflation that disproportionately hits vacation travelers as opposed to a business traveler. and other things along that line. To kind of deep dive into that a little bit more, you know, we took an extra hard look at the ultra low cost carriers, which are, we have the five, it's a little bit hard to see here, but it's basically the Allegiant, Spirit, Frontier, Avelo. These are typically the kinds of airlines, that we would be attracting to a regional airport like a Worcester. And as you see kind of in the profit picture in the bottom right here, they really had a run up of a lot of success, right? Right up to COVID, but then have taken a beating and have not really recovered since. So there's structural constraints in the industry that are disproportionately hitting these airlines that we would, you know, hope to attract in Worcester. So that's one of the challenges going in. And kind of to deep dive on that, we wanted to look at our existing services. So this is a picture on 19 of our existing services. And, you know, one of the good things about the airline industry is all the inputs, the costs and whatnot are fully transparent. So this is our estimate of the existing lines that are offered at Worcester and whether the airline is making money on those or not. So I think as you see it, we have a couple of good ones, or one really good one, the JetBlue flight to Orlando, very full flights, a regular service and whatnot. And we think that JetBlue is making money on that one based on the publicly available data. But when you think about the other ones, it's a little bit more of a struggle. So we looked at this as a context to think about, you know, working with our community as well as to ensure that we're filling up these flights so that we can keep the service that we have and expand upon it going in the future. So Massport's doing everything we can. That is FAA allowed to help, improve the service at Worcester and increase the amount of airlines that we have calling there. This includes everything that's kind of on the left-hand side of this page. There are a lot of things that, you know, we as an authority are not allowed to do. The FAA heavily regulates, for example, cross-subsidization between different assets and whatnot. So we're trying everything we can on the allowed side, and obviously we are being very wary of making sure we're not going against anything the FAA does not allow. One of the things that, as we were diving deep into the workshop and learning about how we can expand service in Worcester, is that risk sharing is one tool that we've seen other regional airports use. So this is the concept that when it is a risky proposition for an airline to open service in a new place, and so communities have found different tools, financial incentives and whatnot, to de-risk that initial outlay for an airline, so that to sort of grease the skids and then, you know, going into that place. One of those is on the next page that we've seen. So minimum revenue guarantees is one concept that is becoming increasingly popular. This is where FAA does not allow for an airport such as Massport to incentivize to provide direct subsidies, for example, for expanded service. There are municipalities, towns that we'll go into in some of the next pages are setting this up and allowing for that financial backstop for the airlines from a variety of funds, either state funds or hotel and concession taxes.
And if I could just interject, there are examples of minimum revenue guarantees in the private sector. And I experienced that firsthand when I worked for American Airlines. In Vail, Colorado, Vail Mountain Associates guaranteed American profit if they would fly 2 flights a day in and out of Eagle Vail Airport. It was immediately successful. Vail Associates did not have to give American Airlines a penny of revenue. Those 2 flights a day expanded to 11 flights a day within 3 years. So it's kind of that stimulus. It's getting back to shared risk, particularly with the ultra low cost carriers that really don't have the data that the legacy carriers have, and they're hesitant to go into a market unless they're given some assurances.
That's right. And I think when you, it's actually a great segue to the next page, because there's around about, I think 8. This isn't all of the states that have these incentive programs, but it's a representative sample. And to your point, Andy, typically the way we've seen these set up is a backstop in the first few years, and but a tailing off, right? So it's not like a forever subsidy for these people to operate, but more so a lubrication of the initial.
Kickstarter.
Exactly. So these are some of the states, I think, obviously very relevant to us are Connecticut and Rhode Island. Obviously, on the catchment area map that Andy showed, you know, it's a bit of you could call it an uneven playing field, right? You have states that are within our catchment area that are supporting the airport with these guarantees, whereas Massachusetts currently is not. If we look on the next page, another way that might be a little bit less relevant, but that we did kick the tires on, is a lot of states are tapping into the hotel and rental car tax base to fuel some of these minimum revenue guarantees. One thing that is I think everybody will notice about this list is that these are destinations, right? Reno, Las Vegas, Tampa Bay, whatnot. So they have a big base of hotel and rental cars to draw from. So it's probably something that's, you know, relevant in general, but specifically a little bit less so for us here in Worcester. So those are, you know, some of the key learnings that we took away from, I think, obviously, a couple of summary notes is, you know, we will need to work on increasing our local demand and attraction. The best way to get more service is to use the service that you have, obviously. So the marketing, the working with the local communities to ensure that our flights are full is a great way to ensure that we get future service. But then, you know, we're also looking into copying best practices from other airports, and as I mentioned earlier, you know, thinking about our innovation use cases. So maybe I'll close on 26, which is our preliminary kind of priority areas that we're exploring on our Worcester Airport. The first one is partner with community and airlines to maintain and grow our commercial passenger service. Obviously, we spent a lot of time on that. It's our primary focus. And, you know, we're interested to explore some of these ideas that we've seen from other states, including the minimum revenue guarantee. The second is assessing potential to grow cargo or logistics operations. You know, we think we have a potential comparative advantage being because of our location, proximity to freight, and some of the land use opportunities on our property to potentially grow the, if not passenger, the cargo aspect of it. And then lastly, we're also looking at land use opportunities. So there, to support the innovation economy and resiliency, we haven't focused on a bunch in this presentation, but maybe in the future we can as well, which is around, there's a lot of innovation going on in the aviation space, or electrified vertical takeoff and landing, or is this kind of next opportunity for the next generation of short-haul aircraft that's likely going to be you know, relevant within the scope of this plan. So we wanted to think about how do we use our assets, including our Worcester Airfield, to make sure that's being provided for the use of the innovation economy. So these aren't, you know, exactly the initiatives that will that are final, but they're the ones we're exploring. And maybe I'll wrap up on our timeline. So page 27 has what we're anticipating our next steps being. So we have a draft sort of written report that we're planning on finalizing in the next month or two, and then submitting publicly for public comment for around about a month and a half. And then we'll have a virtual meeting, public meeting, where people can either, if they didn't get a chance to write their public comments, but they can also participate with us, and we'll sort of give a briefing on the plan. And then in the early next year, we'll be voting to adopt it by the Passport Board. So after you take any questions, we also had additional information in the back on case studies on Rhode Island and Connecticut, in case that's helpful, and we're happy to talk more about that.
How helpful if you have insomnia. It's a lot of words on 2 pages, so just for your reading pleasure.
Thank you. On this particular item, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, thank you. Madam Clerk, is there anyone online who would like to speak on this item?
Through the chair, there are no residents online with their hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Councilor Pasillo, do you have any Questions, comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, this was a really thorough presentation, and thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Toomey?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's certainly was really an interesting report, and it's understandable with all of the competition that we have. We need to be innovative and really move swiftly, and I appreciate all the work. I mean, I've known you, Andy, since you guys started, so you've done a remarkable job. I believe that your marketing, I mean, I see reports, PR stuff coming out of the airport all the time, meetings, and I think really engaging in, with the community, and also taking a look too. One thing, we have become more culturally diverse over the past decade, and so I think taking a look at, travel for those folks, who's going back to where, and I know you've got New York flights. Are they tied into, are our flights timed to tie into the flights that would be leaving from New York? Are they convenient? And that's just something that I was thinking about while we were talking about that.
Right, and that is one of the challenges. The timing can and cannot be convenient. What the restriction is one daily flight.
Mm-hmm.
You might make a fantastic connection through LaGuardia or Philadelphia, but on the return, not necessarily so. So that's one of the efforts that we're trying to put on the, not just new air service, but the service with the airlines that we have to increase frequency to give the traveling public more options.
Yep. No, otherwise, I mean, I look forward to hearing more about the specifics on those vignettes that you had with the community, and thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Toomey. First, let me say thank you so much for coming in and giving us this report. I don't need to tell most of us in this room, Worcester, second largest city in New England, and we're certainly looking to make sure that this airport is a huge success for us. And looking at some of the previous data that we were given, certainly the flights, we were looking obviously to increase them, because if we do that, then it's a success for all of us. Certainly happy to see here that you have, a plan for the next steps. Also looking here, it says recent appropriations, and for FY25, it had reported here 1.2 million, and in 26, 2.7. So that's certainly a plus for us. I think we, as a city, look forward to the next strategic plan, the meetings to take place, and look forward to the airport becoming much more successful than it is currently at this time. So just really want to say how much I appreciate you putting this together. But I think the message really is, for us as a city, we're looking for more flights to go out of Worcester, as I'm sure you'd love to see that as well. So thank you for coming.
Thank
So-
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Councilors.
Mr. Dunn, do you have any questions to add? Michelle? We're good? Okay. So at this point, the motion would be to file this item, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Pasillo?
Yes.
Counselor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Counselor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
We'll find out.
So we will move on to item 3A, zone ordinance amendments, report of the planning board upon the petition of Paul Conger, requests the zoning map be amended by extending the MG2 zoning district and the adaptive reuse overlay district to wholly encompass the property at 31 Hollow Street.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is Michelle Smith in the city's planning division. So to summarize for you, the petition and the recommendation of the planning board. In this case, the planning board has favorably recommended the petition. This is for a property at 31 Harlow Street, seeking to extend the manufacturing district, the MG2, as well as the adaptive reuse overlay district, which are located just across of Harlow Street, to encompass this property in its full. It's currently split zoned. And you'll see that in the maps that you have in front of you. So they're seeking to eliminate this little sliver of what you see on your map here as yellow, which is the RG5 zone, and extend the manufacturing district to include that area. It's about just under 5,000 square feet or 0.11 acres, just affecting this one parcel. The differences in terms of the manufacturing and the residential district are quite stark. The residential district obviously allowing a multitude of residential uses where the manufacturing district does not allow any of those. And in the, but given the size, not much that they can do with that little residential sliver. And then the expansion of that manufacturing district allowing for other more intensive uses that could be expanded further into that section of the property. There's a breakdown of all of those in the table that's provided in the staff memo. And I'm happy to go through them in detail if that would be helpful. But otherwise, the dimensional requirements also vary differently between the residential and the manufacturing district. The manufacturing district uses floor area ratio, or sort of density of building build out, as compared to the residential district, which uses lot area and frontage to regulate intensity and size. Generally speaking, the manufacturing district is more permissive in terms of the dimensional controls, so setbacks and height, as compared to the residential district. In terms of the adaptive reuse overlay, this was adopted by the city back in 2011, and the intent and purpose of this is to encourage adaptive reuse of abandoned or underutilized buildings in particular, and create areas for new mixed-use centers. And so the city council adopted across the street over this former sprinkler factory building, as well as adjacent land held in common ownership, a node of the adaptive reuse overlay district, and the owner is seeking to extend that now onto this property that they commonly own, but just across Harlow Street. This would allow for additional flexibility for residential use by special permit. So they want to pull it into the manufacturing, which would prohibit the residential, but allow for the adaptive reuse overlay, which would allow by special permit for residential uses to be introduced, in addition to the other manufacturing and business uses that would be allowed in the manufacturing district that they're seeking to completely extend. Again, dimensional requirements have flexibility through the adaptive reuse overlay. Essentially, the planning board controls those through the special permit process if they don't meet the ones that otherwise would be applicable. And then parking can be reduced through special permit through the adaptive reuse overlay district down to one space per residential unit. In terms of the zoning history, the property has had similar zoning in terms of the manufacturing property, although the area that is residential actually was residential. The RG5 that it is now flipped to a lower density RL7 and then flipped back to the RG5 over time. So it has some change, but essentially has been a higher density residential district for a long time. And this manufacturing area obviously kind of aligns with the historic manufacturing uses that you see there just east of the 290-190 split in that kind of bowl. In terms of the citywide long-range plan, this area has been identified as a part of a transformative area with a land use vision for kind of artisan type users. So if you imagine kind of what the sprinkler factory used to be, arts, fashion, furniture, food, those types of uses with complementary uses, things like residential, hotels, potentially, retail, et cetera. And so that's all kind of the vision in the long range plan, which is similar to the purpose of the adaptive reuse overlay district. Happy to talk more, but historically this particular property was actually a contractor yard, but going back in time, we found that it was a wagon shed and storehouse. So a little funny history, but prior to that, it was actually owned by the railroad before we had 290. So happy to clarify if you have any questions or describe further. I do believe that the applicant or the petitioner is online.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could have the petitioner, if they would like to say a few words, now's the time to do so.
Through the chair, I am unmuting Paul Conger now. So Paul, if you'd like to speak, you should be able to at this point. Paul, if
Thank you, Madam Chair.
there you go.
Hi. Thank you for your time. The only thing I'd like to thank Michelle and Peter Dunn working with me on this project in a sense of leading me in the right direction. I'm new at this, so I'm been more than willing to cooperate and work with the city. I think it only makes sense because of the surrounding areas.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none. Councilor Pasillo. Councilor Toomey.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Thank you. Motion would be to approve 3A.
Counselor Pasillo,
Yes.
Counselor Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Counselor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to 3B, report of the planning board upon the communication of the city manager, recommend adoption of zoning ordinance amendment relative to accessory dwelling units. Mr. Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As you're all familiar with, in the fall or August of 2024, the state passed the Affordable Homes Act, which amended the state's zoning act and enabled a zoning exemption for accessory dwelling units by right. As you're also familiar with, the city of Worcester had adopted a zoning ordinance amendment enabling similarly ADUs by right, several months prior to that in January of 2024. And then over the course of the winter, the state, through the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, promulgated and published the final regulations for that law. And then subsequently, over the course of the late winter and early spring, published some guidance for municipalities in the interpretation of those regulations. And so this zoning amendment that you have before you is what we need to do to make sure that our ADU requirements and zoning ordinance text complies with the intent and those regulations under state law now. One of the kind of notable changes is our original ordinance included an owner occupancy requirement. And so that is not allowed under the state law that was passed. So this amendment eliminates that requirement. And then there's some minor dimensional considerations that were also necessary to update. And so once we produced this and sent this to the city council in May, it was referred to the planning board, and the planning board had their public hearing in July, and they voted unanimously to recommend that this ordinance amendment be passed, and also requested that there be some clarity relative to how any expansions, additions, or renovations interior to an existing structure would be handled, and make sure that that is consistent with the intent of the state law. So the memo that you have before you that was transmitted, because this planning board report went back to the city council and referred to this committee with that request to revise the text and have that clarity. So this document that you were presented with includes a tracked change, so you can see that. It's on page 3. It's under the dimensional regulations, section 5. and just includes this clarification, a new provision that says ADUs proposed within existing buildings to which no expansion or addition is proposed are exempt from the dimensional requirements related to height. So recognizing that structure already exists, it already has a height associated with it, and that if somebody was doing an internal ADU within that existing structure, they wouldn't render themselves out of conformity with the zoning ordinance by doing that. And so that is just the brief modification that the planning board felt like would be helpful in the text, and now it's with this committee for final recommendation to the city council. And Michelle and I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, is there anyone online who would like to speak on this item?
Through the chair, there are no residents online for this item.
Thank you. Councilor Pasillo? No, thank you, Madam. Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. The recommendation would be to approve this.
Through the
This-
chair,
yeah.
could I just clarify, would this be recommend approval as amended?
Pardon me?
Would this be recommend approval as amended?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor Pasillo?
Yes.
Counselor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Counselor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Yes. Item 3C is report of the planning board upon the petition of Daniel S. Ford. Request zoning map be amended to extend in the BG3 zoning district and the commercial corridors overlay district, canal district, sub-area overlay district to fully encompass the property located at 3 Harding Street.
Through you, Madam Chair, Michelle Smith and the city's planning division. So again, before you, a petition for property at 3 Harding Street, which is also known as 189 Washington Street, which is a petition to seek to extend the business general 3.0 district as well as the commercial corridor overlay district, which we'll talk about quite a bit tonight. In terms of the planning board's recommendation, there was a favorable recommendation back in July unanimously in favor of the proposal. The property here that we're talking about is presently split zoned, partially in the BG3 as well as partially in the RG5, which we were just talking about. Presently, there's no overlay districts, so they would be establishing the commercial corridor overlay district on the property through this petition. So you can see on the map that's provided with the red and the yellow that there's a small little section of the back corner of the property that's currently in the RG5 zone. So the applicant's looking to have this be uniform and get rid of that differentiation so that it's all part of the business general district, and then again pull the commercial corridor overlay district, which you'll see out in Washington Street, onto the property to encompass the entirety of that property. This would include approximately about 79 square feet for the business district change, and then about 2,000 square feet as far as the entirety. So this parcel is quite small overall. Again, the property with the split zoning, if we consider the differences between the RG5 and the BG district, the residential uses are actually quite similar. The main differences come down to the business district allowing for a broader breadth of non-residential uses, and you can see that summarized in the table. Things like hospitals, clinics, personal service type uses all become allowed by right in the business general zoning, whereas the RG5 would either not allow those or require special permits for those uses. Flexibility in terms of dimensional controls is similar, where generally speaking the BG3 has less of those. There are some nuances just again in the way that our business and manufacturing districts use floor area ratio or kind of lot build out to regulate density as compared to our residential districts, which use lot area and frontage to do the same. So there's nuance between those. In terms of specifics, the RG5 allows for like a high rise, which would allow for up to 80 feet in height. Under the BG3, that's 100-foot height. So there's minor differences overall. In terms of the commercial corridor overlay district, this would allow for additional flexibility. It establishes new maximums for parking as well as minimums are being reduced. Additionally, there's some design elements because the purpose of the CCOD is to encourage compact and friendly, pedestrian-friendly development and design, so trying to get buildings closer to the street and make the kind of pedestrian environment comfortable and pleasing. So we start to discontinue uses like automotive uses. The current operator actually has that use on the property, and they are familiar with the fact that that will become non-conforming through this change. And we've talked to them at some length about that, but that they're aware of that and understand that. That can still be modified in its non-conforming state through a special permit from the planning board, but it does require special permission for that process. It's already non-conforming now, so they already have headaches, so it's not necessarily furthering that headache, just a slightly different one. In terms of other uses, low-density residential uses actually become not permitted in the commercial corridor overlay because we're trying to have more dense uses in this area. The one thing I'll note relative to the CCOD and the business district is that the floor area ratio does get waived when there is an active ground floor use. So when we have activation of kind of the storefronts or units along the sidewalk, we eliminate the floor area ratio as the building goes up. So they're not necessarily limited in terms of height or density with that kind of combination of a mix of uses. So there has to be some residential component to that for that to apply. Would you like to highlight that? In terms of the history of the zoning of the property, there has been some change in terms of the residential component over time, but this area was historically manufacturing as kind of the core of Green Island has been, and then the residential district kind of crept in over time. In terms of the actual land use, as I mentioned, the property kind of to the back has been being used for automotive use. And then in this area, it actually, at one point, it was a 3-decker with this garage attached, and over time, kind of the property lines have changed to what it is today. But the kind of separated garage to the back, and then the 3-decker towards the front. In terms of the citywide long-range plan, this is a managed growth area intending to see gentle increases in density in terms of housing. Obviously, the property has kind of been affected by changes to the layout over time, and actually the land itself was affected by the construction of the canal back in the day. So we see interesting configurations in the right-of-way and parcel lines over time. More than happy to answer any questions that the committee members may have.
Thank you. Good evening. You want to state your name and city of residence, please?
89 Washington Street.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add to Ms. Smith's?
I think she covered it all.
She covered it all? Okay, that's great. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, is there anyone online who would like to speak to this item?
Through the chair, there are no residents online for this item.
Okay. Councilor Priscillo? No. Councilor Toomey?
It's very clear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The recommendation would be to approve item 3C.
Councilor Priscilla?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Mara Carlson.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 3D, report of the planning board upon the amendment petition of Stephen Fisher, Executive Director of the Regional Environment Council, request zoning map be amended by extending the BG6 Business General Zoning District and the CCOD Commercial Corridors Overlay District downtown to wholly encompass the properties located at 108 Beacon Street, 109 Beacon Street, and 112 Beacon Street.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is again Michelle Smith in the Planning Division. In front of you, petition for 3 different properties, originally 2, the third which the Planning Board added through discussion with the applicant at its hearing back in September. Back in October. terms of the actual proposal, the REC is looking to extend the abutting zoning district, which is the downtown zoning district, which ends in LaGrange Street, and pull it over the entirety of their property. It does abut the rest of the properties located to the rear. So this would provide for contiguity in zoning. The reason that you'll see in red the parcel that was added, which jumps across Beacon Street, is that this is currently a sort of relic manufacturing district, and by virtue of this change would leave only one property, which is a 3-decker in a manufacturing zone. So they recommended including that to get rid of this little relic node of manufacturing that now sits on things that are really no longer manufacturing. So I will call attention to that just since it's a little bit unusual. That inclusion added just under 4,000 square feet. So again, really small property and small inclusion through that change. But they recommended unanimously in favor of this change back at their meeting in October. You'll see there's different iterations of the map. So you'll see the ones that predate and have a slightly smaller square footage, just showing the 2 properties to the south of Beacon and LaGrange that were petitioned by the applicant, and then including later in the documents, you'll see one that shows jumping across Beacon Street and extending onto this 3-decker across. So this is, again, about 27,000 square feet in full, or just over half an acre of property that's being affected here by this change. One of these properties at 112 Beacon Street is currently presently split zone, so part of that's in a residential district and part of it's in a manufacturing district. So for the REC, this is providing uniformity in zoning across both of their properties so that they're within one district. And then again, for the property across the street, it's getting rid of that relic manufacturing. There are a lot of differences because we're talking about 3 different zoning districts and an overlay district, so I'm not going to belabor each of them, but I'm more than happy to answer any particular questions. There is a table that summarizes the nuance between them in terms of use categories. Generally speaking, the manufacturing district and the business district have more limited dimensional controls compared to the residential district. Once you introduce the commercial corridor overlay district, there's a lot of flexibility that is provided for. The BG6 waives or eliminates parking requirements, and then again, the CCOD imposes parking maximums, which are essentially the parking minimums we have everywhere else in the city. So those are 2 ways that the CCOD is providing some flexibility for the property in terms of its reuse. There are other design elements, as I mentioned previously, for the commercial corridor overlay district that are included, which helps for infill to be, again, pedestrian friendly. So buildings closer to the street, there's a maximum setback that is introduced. There are minimum setbacks introduced for certain types of uses where either a sidewalk is narrow or there's ground floor residential uses on properties. In terms of the manufacturing district that presently exists today, residential uses, again, really not allowed at all as compared to business and residential uses where they are allowed by right. And then in the manufacturing district, we see some of the kind of more polluting manufacturing uses which start to go away and either are not allowed in the RG5 or have some more limited flexibility within the business district. Dimensionally, anything notable that I talked a little bit about this previously in terms of the active ground floor use and the elimination of density requirements in terms of the floor area ratio. So you can see quite a bit of build out on the lot with that elimination were there to be an active ground floor and a combination of residential use. In terms of the property's zoning history, it actually has none beyond what exists today. Unusually, there haven't really been changes on the property over time. The neighborhood definitely residential kind of to the sort of south of Main Street, but to the west of the property. And then you have, the former mill buildings along LaGrange Street and Beacon Street, which are being reused, as well as the farm on the property that currently exists. In terms of the citywide long-range plan and vision, this abuts a transformative growth area with an artisan land use vision, just similarly what we were talking about as it relates to the sprinkler factory area not long ago. That same kind of vision for land uses and growth. So this doesn't fall within that, but immediately abuts that. It is located within a managed growth area, again, trying to encourage for housing density based on proximity to transit. You'll see too in the map that there's an infill growth area along Main Street in terms of that corridor, but not located immediately in that area. And then historically, one of the buildings has been used as a fire station, more recently as a church. And then we have a surface parking lot that has become or was previously a two-family prior to its demolition. And then again, across the street, we have that three-decker. So this change related to the three-decker, who is not a petitioner of the request, should make the property more conforming in terms of parking, which really doesn't exist on the property today, and reducing some of the setback requirements as well as allowing the use. Happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there's things that I missed just because of the nuance between all the different districts. I'm happy to answer those, though.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on the item? Please state your name and city of residence, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Steve Fisher. My residence is in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I'm the Executive Director of the Regional Environmental Council, the REC. I'm here, I'm going to be a little redundant, please forgive me, Madam Chair. I'm here in support of the amended petition to extend the BG6 zoning district and the CCODD overlay to fully include 108, 109, and 112 Beacon Street, including the historic firehouse REC purchased earlier this year. This change is essentially a cleanup of the zoning map, as Michelle said. Right now, the parcels are split between districts, which creates confusion for permitting and redevelopment. Aligning them fully within BG6 and the CCODD will give us a clear, consistent framework as we work to rehabilitate the building and develop our ambition for a center for urban agriculture and food security here in Worcester, a project focused on food access, youth employment, community programs, and the preservation of a National Historic Register landmark, the firehouse. Our plans are compatible with the BG6 district and strongly support the city's goals for historic reuse, economic development, and community revitalization in Maine South. The project will bring new activity, new jobs, and a long-term community asset that complements nearby mixed-income housing. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, is there anyone on the line who would like to speak on this item?
Through the chair, there are no residents online at this time for this item.
Thank you. Council Pasillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say how happy I am to see the REC expanding and preserving a historic building. You do so much in the community. We're really lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Toomey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly am very happy to see the commitment to supporting the historic building. That's really important, especially in our neighborhoods that have changed a lot, so I think that's important. And I know your goal of maintaining open space is very important as well, for obvious reasons, for growing food and eliminating those food deserts, and that's really important, especially in that densely populated area. So I want to say thank you and look forward to seeing the results of all your efforts in the end. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Motion would be to approve 3D. Look forward to the completion of the project. Thank you.
Councilor Pasillo?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilmember Carlson?
Yes. Moving on to item 3E, report of the planning board upon the petition of Kevin J. Breen, head of Worcester Academy. Request zoning map be amended by changing the zoning designation of the property located and known as 232 Stafford Street, AKA 242 Stafford Street, from the current zoning designation of RS7 to RG5 as shown in the plan attached here too.
If I
Michelle?
may.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the applicant has a video that they would like to show. If I'll be happy to reserve my comments until after the video if you'd like.
Okay, so you do have comments to?
I would just summarize, yes. If you want, I can summarize my comments
Yeah,
first.
if you
Sure,
would
no problem.
be kind enough to
Absolutely.
summarize, and then we can listen to the or, yeah, look at the video.
At your
How's that?
Yes, definitely. So again, Michelle Smith in the city's planning division. So this is a petition that you have here to rezone a property that's currently located in RS7 zoning district into a new node of the RG5 zoning district. The property being that what you're familiar with as the athletic fields that Worcester Academy has in this location. So that's 232, also known as 242 Stafford Street. So you can see there's a series of different maps and that are included. So you can see there's a large parcel which includes almost 37 acres of land that they're seeking to rezone. So it's entirely located in the RS7 zoning district today. This is partially located in the floodplain overlay district, but just want to note that that is completely independent and will be unchanged by virtue of this particular request. So the RG5 and the RS7 are quite different. The RS7 is our sort of second least dense zoning district that we have, and then the RG5 is actually the most dense residential zoning district that we have. So there's quite a bit of difference, while the range of uses is predominantly residential across both districts in terms of which use classifications are allowed. You can see that summarized in the table provided, where we see the RS7 really only allows for single family homes, while the RG5 allows for everything up to a multifamily high rise. So differences there. The RG5 also introduces some allowances for non-residential uses, mostly by special permit. Dimensionally speaking, the districts are different, partially because the RS7 doesn't contemplate the nuance of other uses. It's really only contemplating residential single-family homes, and then kind of everything else is other, whereas the RG5 has a variety of different designations based on the type of use. Generally speaking, though, the RG5 has more permissive requirements. So front yard setbacks we see reduced from what is generally 25 feet to 15 feet as we would go to the proposed RG5 zone. The same with respect to side setbacks, going from 8 to 20 feet down to 8 to 10 feet. And then in the rear, similarly, we see a range of 20 to 50 feet in the current zoning, and we go down to 8 to 15 feet in the proposed zoning. Same is true with height, really only contemplated as a single family home, so 2.5 stories, 35 feet, whereas we could have a high-rise tower up to 90 feet with 8 stories in the RG5 zoning district. So generally a much denser characteristic would be allowed in the RG5 zone. In terms of this area, the property has a manufacturing legacy, changed somewhere in the 80s, and then into the 90s, we see that taking its residential form that it is today. You'll be familiar with the land uses along the section of Stafford Street, but we have kind of to the northeast and then to the southwest these pockets of residential uses. Across the street immediately, we have this node of manufacturing, and then as you get onto kind of the James Street corridor, you've got a lot more retail, and as you extend kind of easterly along Main Street, the same is true, which is representative of the zoning in those areas being business zoning and open to those types of uses. Historically, the property has been open space. It became a playground back in the 60s, and then its current ownership by Worcester Academy and the operation of the New Balance fields there since, I think, 1999. In terms of Now Next, we actually have this area as a background growth area, so it isn't necessarily targeted specifically for transformation or infill. Mostly the designation of the managed growth area terminates kind of right at the intersection, mostly because it's related directly to where our transit corridors are, and because transit is not served along this section of the street, it doesn't extend beyond that. Otherwise, that kind of pink shadow would have carried along the corridor, but again, it terminates with the bus service where it exists today. So it's just in that kind of background area, which is anticipating growth more generally. Happy to clarify, but I'm sure you'll enjoy the video.
Thank you. Please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, Madam Chair. For the record, Mark Bornstein, an attorney at the law firm of Prince Bell here in Worcester. I'm also a proud resident of the city of Worcester, District 1. We have a short video for you, but first I just want to introduce the folks that are joining us in person and remotely. To my right, we have Zach Feldman of E77 Development LLC, who made the trip up from New York. So thank you, Zach. We also have Kevin Breen, the head of school of Worcester Academy, and his counsel, Joshua Lee Smith. And I think remotely we have Bard Kligerman of Connecticut Realty Trust LLC. So We've got a short video, 2.5 minutes. There might be some redundancy to Ms. Smith's comments, but with that, after that, we'll have her to answer any questions the board may have. Commissioner Mather.
Great, thank you.
You good, Claire?
Worcester Academy seeks a zoning amendment pertaining to the existing property located at 232 Stafford Street. The lot has a total area of approximately 36.6 acres and is occupied by Worcester Academy's athletic fields, an accessory structure, and surface parking facilities. The property is currently located in the residence single-family RS7 zoning district and is partially within the floodplain overlay district. Worcester Academy has petitioned the City Council to establish the Residence General RG5 zoning district at the property. Worcester Academy is seeking this zoning amendment on behalf of E77 Development LLC and Connecticut Realty Trust to allow for the development of a residential community at the property, which will likely include a mixture of residential uses, including duplexes and a multifamily building. The development team is proposing these denser types of uses because Kettlebrook is located along the westerly portion of the property, and therefore any proposed buildings and related development will need to be located along the easterly side of the site. The development team is currently contemplating a 5-story multifamily building with approximately 140 residential units, 40 duplex buildings with a total of 80 residential units, and off-street parking for residents and guests. These types of residential uses are currently prohibited in the existing RS7 zoning district, but allowed in the proposed RG5 zoning district. The proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the Worcester Now Next plan because the subject property is immediately adjacent to a managed growth area, which the Worcester Now Next plan has identified as an area within 1/4 of a mile walk of existing and potential future transit corridors that can support moderate increases in housing density from what is currently allowed by zoning. The development team seeks to enhance the existing transit corridor by coordinating with the WRTA to further extend the bus line up Stafford Street to the extent possible. Furthermore, the RG5 zoning district provides the ideal zoning district buffer between the RS7 zoning district along Ludlow Street and the manufacturing uses and zoning districts to the south of the property. The RG5 zoning district provides opportunities for denser residential uses without the potential for less desirable business or manufacturing uses.
Thank you, Mr. Borenstein. Anything else to add?
Nope. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Please state your name and city of residence.
Good afternoon. For the record, Joshua Lee Smith. As Mark mentioned, I'm outside counsel for Worcester Academy. Here just in support to speak on behalf of this proposed zoning amendment change. This property has a history that goes back to about 2004, which is when I was a summer clerk at Bowditch and Dewey. And at the time, the Academy needed to have these additional athletic fields. So as part of their master plan, they had developed the fields. And then over time, as I think many of the members here probably know, they started to develop other areas in and around their main campus over at 81 Providence Street, culminating ultimately in what you see today, which is the Capozzoli Athletic Center, as well as Morris Field. So there are a number of reasons why the Academy is looking to now sell this property over at Stafford Street, one of which is because they've had the opportunity to be able to advance some of their athletic fields at their other site closer to their main campus. Mm-hmm. So all in all, I just want to again give our entire whole support with respect to this zone change. We do think, for all the reasons that Mark had stated, as set forth in the video, as Michelle has stated, and full support by the planning board, we think this is a no-brainer, and we think it makes sense, so we fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Breen, resident of Worcester and the head of school at Worcester Academy. Been really excited in my brief tenure to be a partner with the city to do some upgrades on the Union Hill side of town. And this gives us a great opportunity to address a strategic priority, which is student safety. And so we have loved playing out at New Balance Field, but we've also had some student car accidents on the to and from, including a bad hydroplane accident on 290 a year ago. Around the same time, I became aware of the city's need for more housing units. So this strikes me as one of those great win-win opportunities, and we support the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this?
My name is William Broder. I've been living at the same residence that butts this property since 1972. My family has owned the property since 1920s. We welcomed Worcester Academy when they came in there in the early 2000s to build the field. Now, one of the things they did, they took out many trees, they made many levels because of the water level there. And back when it was built, the only thing that could be built there for a building was their restroom / office that's on the right of the parking lot. And that had to be put up many feet in the air because of the water. I've lived there for over 50 years. I know what the water does come around. And also, environmentally, this is going to be a huge mistake, first of all, by trying to convert that over to all housing. You have waterways that come all the way around, that go all the way through down to Rhode Island. On the other hand, if anybody has ever driven Ludlow Street or Stafford Street in the mornings, since they've done all the work for the bike lanes, traffic can be backed up halfway up the street for over an hour. And you can't even get out of a street. People that live on Ludlow Street can't get out of their driveway. Unfortunately, nobody has looked at all these other aspects of it before trying to approve for housing. I don't know traffic patterns. It's one lane going up, one lane coming down. The same for Ludlow Street. And in this time, like I went to the second version of South High School, and now that there is a third version, plus a Sullivan Middle on the top, we have the traffic lights up there. So there's a lot of traffic that happens up there. I just would like you to further look at the traffic patterns, and before approving anything, really look at the aspect of how much traffic you're going to bring into the area. And I'm all for redeveloping, but unfortunately, I think it's really going to the edge of the river. When the first meeting was put out, we kind of thought it was just on top, where they talked about for the reintroduction housing of people going from being substance abuse to try and be put back into life. So there was talk about little houses being put up on the hill above their property, and that's what a lot of us thought that was. And you have to, if that was a plan, then it has to be somewhere, and we were okay with that. But to put this aspect of buildings in that neighborhood and taking away another part of Worcester, I think is ridiculous on that end of the spectrum. A few houses that were maybe away from the river, one thing, but that big of a development, I think is going to cause a lot more problems than anybody would ever imagine, because you have a lot of people here that are for it, that don't live there and haven't been there for over 50 years. And I strongly disagree with what is going on right now. And to actually try and turn that over, I understand people want to make money. In Worcester Academy, their purpose is actually, I have no issue with that, with them not wanting to sell it now because of reasons that they did finally acquire property close to the school. And everybody has enjoyed what they did with that property. It's beautiful. Walking through above the river, their cross-country trails, the fields, when people bring their dogs down there, everything has been great. But now to change that is tough, and I know I'm only one person. I don't know where most of the neighborhood is, but if you would really look at the community or look at the traffic patterns, I don't think it can support it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for hearing me.
Is there anyone else online who would like to speak about this item? Madam Clerk.
Through the chair, at this time, there are no residents online.
Thank you. Mr. Borenstein.
If I may, Madam Chair, I appreciate the neighbors' comments and certainly understand the concerns. I would just remind the committee that before you is the zoning amendment, not the actual project. We were showing the conceptual plan simply for some context. Certainly, any proposed project of that magnitude would require a site plan review, zoning approvals, which would require a traffic study and additional analyses, and a conservation commission approval through an order of conditions. I would note that with respect to the trails, the development team is in discussions with Greater Worcester Land Trust in terms of understanding how they can integrate that trail to maintain that for residents of this particular residential development, but also in the area. So certainly understand those concerns, and we certainly will tackle them as we approach the actual permitting of the project.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this particular item? Hearing none. Councilor Pasillo, any comments on this item?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Toomey, any comments or questions on item 3C?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing, as I looked at the potential development, certainly we need more housing, but there's also, there's a positive and negative with all of it. We lose some open space, but I saw that there was a lot of green space that was part of that property as well. So I thought, or that plan. So I thought that was good. Another positive is that this property will now be back on the tax rolls and will be supporting our community. So that's a positive, and we're certainly happy about that. Traffic study would have to be done anyway as part of this whole process. This is just the beginning. There are a lot of steps that have to be taken before final approval is given. So there will be opportunity to ensure that all of the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, especially for the environmental issues. So I want to say thank you to everybody for their comments, and that's all. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Toomey. Thank you, Mr. Borenstein. Although I don't think we needed to be reminded of what we're voting on tonight, I do appreciate you. And you're absolutely right. What we are here for tonight is for the zoning map amendment. For the traffic and any other parts of this project, that's not in this committee. Our role tonight is strictly on the zoning map amendment. And based on the information that we have before us, and based on what has been given to this committee, the recommendation would be to approve the zoning amendment for this particular address, which is 232 Stafford Street, also known as 242. So motion would be to approve the zoning amendment. Roll call.
Councilor Pasillo?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson?
Yes. Having no other items before us, the motion would be to adjourn.
Councilor Pasillo?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson?
Yes.